Dr. Cindy Howard, a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and your host of the Positively Altered podcast. Also an author of my first book, Positively Altered, Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag. So today we're going to talk about our brains, and they're kind of important. And we're going to find out how important. And this is probably going to scare a few of you because some of you might think, I wonder if my brain isn't functioning as well as it possibly could be. And when we think about brain function, you may not be thinking about it in the way that we're going to discuss. I'm not sure if I've intrigued you or not, but go ahead and take a break. We're going to listen to a couple really important sponsors, and then we're going to come back and meet my guest today, Dr. Matt Antonucci, who's going to discuss all things about brain health. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back. I hope you brought your brain back to the podcast because that's what we're going to discuss today with my friend, Dr. Matt Antonucci, who is a chiropractic neurologist. Welcome, Matt. I'm so happy to have you.
I am so grateful to be here. It's great to see you, Cindy. And we always have a good time. So I'm really excited what's going to happen today.
We do. So I don't know how long we've known each other. We won't admit to it because then I'm older than you are, but then it dates me. But I do remember we've been in some of the same circles speaking and talking about, different things, and where I love to talk about internal medicine and you love to talk about neurology. I remember you standing on stage and I was going, I have no idea what he's saying. Like, this makes no sense. It's way above my head. And then I don't know if you had the same thoughts about me.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like, I don't know what she's talking about. This is way out of my, and yet it's been a great compliment. So it's really fun to have you on the podcast because I think I'm going to learn a lot again, as I always do from you. And I'll give my 2 cents where I think, it may or may not be important or appropriate.
Yeah.
And let's wow some people about brain health tonight. You ready?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so when I think neurologist, this is what I think of, right? I think, okay, I'm going to make an appointment with a doctor and it's going to take me 4 months to get in, and he's going to stick something in my body that's going to hurt to measure some electrical impulses, and maybe he'll take a scan of my head, and I don't know if that's going to hurt or not. And then he's going to put me on medication and I'm not going to be any better.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of when I
You're
think
not
of
far
neurology.
off. That's about right.
Okay, but that's not at all what you do.
No,
not at all.
not at
So
all.
share with everybody, like, what is this functional neurology thing? Because it's so cool.
Yeah, so functional neurology is very similar to functional medicine. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening know about because of you. The big thing with functional neurology, just like functional medicine, it's all about the dynamic movement towards or away from health. Where you have, we'll call it allopathic neurology. Allopathic neurology is very black or white. You meet the characteristics and the diagnostic criteria of Parkinson's disease. Either you do or you don't. Whereas in functional neurology, we'll start saying, hey, you know what? You're slowing down a little bit. You're not really having facial expressions. You don't quite have a tremor yet. Maybe you got some shoulder pain. Your balance is not so great. All of these are signs of pre-Parkinsonism. Let's do some things to turn that clock back before you actually get labeled with that diagnosis. So it's really assessing characteristics of one's behavior and their cognitive function, their emotional state, their physical function, to interpret and kind of deduce how their brain is functioning. Mainly because the brain is really not that complicated. It's just an integrator. No, it really isn't. It takes sensory information in, it integrates it and creates a motor output. So it's no different than pressing a key on a keyboard. When you press the letter F, you should see the letter F pop up on the screen because the computer did its job. If you press the letter F and a P popped up on the screen, you would say there's something wrong with my computer. We do the same exact stuff with the brain. We do a test. We know it should be. If it's not that, we think there's something wrong with it.
Oh my God, Matt, I almost flunked neurophysiology and neuroanatomy. I think if I go back to school, okay, maybe I didn't really flunk, but I know I sat there with this sort of dazed and confused look. So when you say the brain is simple, come on, that's
Well,
really
simple is not easy, maybe a better term, because simple doesn't always mean easy. It's a super complex organ. It's probably one of the most complex organs we have, but mainly because it's not a linear organ, right? So when you start looking at the lungs, we know that oxygen diffuses down a concentration gradient, follows physics into the alveoli and then into the bloodstream. It's very linear. The brain is not linear. It's more of a chaos theory, right? You've probably heard of chaos theory before, butterfly flaps its wings and then a typhoon happens in Japan, right? So just because if air molecules move across continents and all of a sudden it starts spinning up. So we have to really look at the brain in that sort of a fashion. It's like a three-dimensional decision-making tree. And once you figure out how to navigate your way up or down the tree, we call it simple, but we know it's not simple. We call it easy. Almost akin to like moving to a new city and the major highway system, super complex, but you learn it.
I don't believe you.
Well, here's the thing. It's really not that hard when you start really looking at the basics. We all learn in school that the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, right? So if I were to tap my fingers like this on one hand and like this on the other hand, you would say, hey, that's faster than that. So it's not as simple as that, but this is my left hand. So that might just mean the right side of my brain is functioning at a little lower state. So a functional neurologist or a chiropractic neurologist will do lots and lots and lots of tests to figure out all those little nuances and then create a picture out of it, just to kind of see, okay, this is the network of brain areas that are not working.
So when people say I'm more right-brained or left-brained, what does that mean?
So that a lot of that comes out of the old stroke literature, and it's not obsolete. Basically, there are personality traits that are created by the left hemisphere of your brain versus the right hemisphere of the brain. For example, left hemisphere is designed to be a little bit more detail oriented. The right side is a little bit more global. The left side is more things very descriptive. The right side is more directional. So there's a lot of characteristics of one half of the brain or the other, but nobody is really left-brained or right-brained because we use 100% of our brain all of the time. It's like we're using all parts of our brain when we sleep. We're using all parts of our brain when we think, when we're active, just more of some areas than others. Even some individuals who have had there's a seizure disorder called Rasmussen syndrome. And if you catch it before the age of 3, they do a radical hemispherectomy where they take out one half of your brain. And these people function completely normally. You would never know. They use their right arms, their left arms. They have the ability to navigate. They have the ability to speak languages. So that kind of shows us that this whole right brain, left brain thing isn't as maybe important or as accurate as we once thought it was.
Is it a compensation though? Like, do they compensate because they're missing part of it? Or it's just that the brain really is that intelligent that it can function without the other half?
It's partially compensation, but it's through neuroplasticity, right? It's just remodeling. So remodeling can be compensation or it can not be a compensation. Typically, when we think of a compensation, if there's something wrong and another area picked up the slack. Neuroplasticity doesn't always work that way. Neuroplasticity is just an increase of efficiency, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. It's not a good thing when you have PTSD. It's a really good thing if you need to learn. So that's that whole Rasmussen where you have one half of your brain. It's probably a compensation, but ultimately, it's a great example of neuroplasticity in action and how 50% of somebody's brain could be as efficient as 100% of somebody else's brain.
So, for those people that don't speak medical terms out there, right? Because I'm sure we're losing a couple people when we throw out some of these big words.
Yeah.
How would you best describe neuroplastic? Oh my gosh, I think I'm having a brain problem, right? Okay, wait, which part of my brain is not working, Matt, that I can't say neuroplasticity?
Broca's area, left frontal lobe.
Broca's, right, where language is, right?
Yeah.
My language is defunct. All right, so, oh boy. All right, so let's just, what word I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
When we talk about that, what's an easy way for somebody to understand that? Is it almost the way the brain is trained? Is it a learned behavior? Like, what is neuroplasticity for those of us that don't get it?
Yeah. Neuroplasticity is synonymous with learning. I mean, that's it. It's just learning. But if you want to know how it works on a cellular level, when a neuron, which is a cell of the nervous system or the brain, when it becomes activated, it creates protein, just like muscles do, just like every other tissue in your body. When it's stimulated, when it's exercised, when it's driven and it has fuel. That's why, functional medicine is so important. We need to have the right fuel in order to drive neuroplasticity. But when we activate a cell, it starts creating protein and it sends out signaling molecules to say, hey, we're doing a lot of work over here. We should probably bring the troops over here and become more efficient so that we could do our work better. And then one of those molecules is called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF for short. So when we use something, we gain it. If we stop using it, we lose it because there's a pruning. There's an opposite of that, which is a pruning sort of a scenario in the brain as well too. And both of those can lead to problems. I mean, too much of one causes seizures, not enough of the other causes autism. So, there's all sorts of importance on the cellular level to understand, but kind of going back to where we started, I mean, neuroplasticity is just learning. It's your brain's way of taking environmental signals in and making itself more efficient so it could do a better job for you.
Now, is it true that the signals that the brain takes in aren't necessarily important whether they're real or not? So, like a visualization versus a real experience, how does the brain differentiate, or does it not?
What is real?
I don't know.
Right? So that's the
Oh,
thing
now
is,
we're going to go all existential and
yeah, well,
weird on this podcast. All right,
well,
I
no,
don't know what's I
but
don't know what's
that's a
real,
serious
man.
question though. Well, it's a serious question though. If your brain has two neurons that we call it firing, if they create electrical potentials and they talk to each other, you experience something as if it's real. Some people, with some of the mushrooms that are coming out and all this different stuff, they start smelling colors and tasting sounds, right? So it's like, and it's real to them. There are some individuals that have, mental psychological disorders where, they have like schizophrenia and they think that things are real. I had a patient one time after a really traumatic brain injury, combination of PTSD, concussion, came in to the clinic. We evaluated him and it looked like it was going really well. Decided he needed to go to the bathroom, went to the bathroom. All of a sudden I hear smash, smash, smash. Started breaking all the mirrors in my bathroom. And like, I went running, like, what's going on? And he goes, oh, the mask, the mask. And I'm like, what mask? He goes, the mask on my face. And I said, there's no mask on your face. He goes, you don't see it? The scream mask? He was looking in the mirror. Whenever he looked in the mirror, he saw the scream mask on his face. And he was just trying to punch the mirror to not see it. So he had schizophrenia. So the question is, when I say what's real, that was real to him.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question directly, it doesn't matter if it's real or not real. If your brain perceives it, it can change it.
So it's interesting you say that because I talk a lot about when people discuss things, what truth is. And I always say that perception is your truth, right?
Mhm.
And my perception might be very different than your perception. So how does that work? We're just having a normal conversation, right? And I say the sky is blue and you say it's blue, and then the third person comes in and sees purple, and that might be their truth. Is that not necessarily a problem with the brain, or again, it's a wiring of what they might have been taught?
It's a wiring what they're taught, because you might have some person saying it's blue, the other person says it's azul, right? And then they get into an argument. No, it's azul. No, it's blue. I mean, obviously, for people that don't speak Spanish, blue in Spanish is azul. So they're saying the same thing, but you're going to get into an argument over it. And that's because that's how that person's brain was wired. It was wired that was azul, or this is not a table, this is a mesa, right? And you can have, I mean, we can really start getting out there arguments about religion and politics based upon how the world was presented to you for a period of your life when you're developing, cells, or maybe an experience that happened to you in your life that changed that trajectory. I mean, all of it is just so super interesting. And this is more psychology and things like that. That's not my area, but I find it interesting. I like reading about it. I like, my thing is concussions. But the nice thing about concussions is it gives me a little bit of all of that, because we know that concussions affect all parts of your brain, and pretty much anything can manifest from a concussion.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love concussion work too, and that's where I know we've worked together a little bit, because you hit it from the brain aspect and I hit it from the physiology, chemistry aspect, right? And maybe this would be a fun thing to share with everybody. I find that a lot of people don't even know that they've been concussed. They don't even understand that some of the effects that they're having were a result of that, even a subconcussive type activity, right?
Yeah.
That then can affect them for decades. Yeah,
Well, and
I'd
that's,
love to get your opinion on that.
yep. Well, part of that is a miseducation. We knew so little about concussions 20 years ago, and we knew maybe half as much 10 years ago. And the majority of the research has come over the past 3 or 4 years. If you rewind 10 years ago, most people didn't believe that they had a concussion unless they lost consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We know now that less than 10% of all concussions lose consciousness. So if that's your bar, 90% of the people are going to say I was never concussed. And the reality is that when you start really digging into the literature, nobody knows how many concussions really occur. And the reason is because there's not really any way to track it. I mean, let's face it, I've had a couple. I mean, I've got a nice big cut on my chin from when I was younger, going over the handlebars of my dirt bike and things like that. And I never reported that. My insurance company never knew about it, anything like that. So I have never had a documented concussion. But I can tell you right now that I've had at least 3 or 4 in my life. And I think that most people listening to this are nodding their head right now saying, yeah, me too. Because when you really do the numbers, the way that it comes out is that every person on the planet by the time they turn 25 will have had a concussion. That's the fact of the matter. It's just now what we just need to do is educate the public what it looks like or what it feels like when somebody has one, so they can identify it more appropriately.
So I'll share with you a funny story. So I was 25 years old. I was visiting Israel for the very first time, which, by the way, is one of the most, maybe you don't go today, but one of the most amazing places I've ever been on earth. So if you get a chance to go, I think everybody should visit it at least once. But it was interesting. I was on a tour. It was a singles group. We were on a tour, right? And I remember I had tripped, fell backwards on some stone stairs. So I hit the back of my head and I was concussed, right? And I was so excited because there was actually a medical doctor that was on the tour, and he was really cute, Matt. Like, I was, and I'm single. He was really good looking. So I was super excited because they're like, you need to be monitored. Now, this goes back. I mean, this will tell you how old I am. This goes back to the days where you put people to bed, you woke them up like 3 times, and you're like, who's the president? What is your name? How old are you? And as long as you could answer those 3 questions, you were good, right? So he offered to stay in my room, with me to make sure that he could wake me right? But here's the thing. So I know for those of you listening and not watching, I just got a double thumbs up from Matt, but here's the problem. Turns out he was gay.
Oh,
so like good for him, but really bad for me in that situation. And here I finally got to sleep with a medical doctor. I thought, oh, my Jewish mother will be so happy that I'm connecting with a medical doctor. And I couldn't even make the moves while I was concussed. So he did take really good care of me to make sure I was okay back in the day of how we used to treat. But needless to say, there was no love connection there on the trip, Matt. So.
Well, funny you said that, because that doesn't tell you how old you are, because that was the advice 7 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So that's the world we're living in right now with concussion, but it's evolving quickly in a positive way.
It is. So how do we help people? Like, what should they be looking for in terms of what type of side effects can we have long term in concussion that we might want to look back and go, we should really get that checked out.
Yeah, I mean, this is the tough part because it's A to Z. I mean, realistically, when you injure the organ that controls everything, anything is possible. Well, I'm a data guy, right? And I don't read Sports Illustrated; I read research papers. But what the research is saying is, and this was a study that was done out of Canada, and the reason why this was really great is because Canada has, well, at least in the province of Ontario, has a really great socialized healthcare system where everything is coded, everything is in their database because the system pays for the doctors. So the doctors make sure the code gets in there, so they get paid. But anyways, what this one study did is they tried tracking a whole bunch of people. It's a really well designed study. They did functional MRIs on a very large number of people, and they waited for some people in the group to have a concussion. They followed them for up to 3 years, which is pretty amazing. And what they found is that only 27% of the people that had a concussion anywhere along the ways, 27% recovered on their own without some sort of an intervention by a physician, a rehab, physical therapy, vision therapy, chiropractic, whatever it might have been. And those that did not recover by 3 years were considered to be permanent. So, and that was once again, not when your symptoms go away, not when you feel better. This is strictly looking at time point number one, your brain functioned like this. At time point number two, after the concussion, it functioned like that. And then up to 3 years later, it still functioned like that, not time point number one, in 70, whatever the math is, 73% of the people. So what can it feel like? Headaches, anxiety, depression, balance issues, dizziness, difficulty when you get out of bed with a little bit of lightheadedness and dizzy, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity. I mean, the list goes on. Neck pain, back pain. Even things like they've shown that individuals have a 3.5 time, 350% more likely to blow their MCL after having a concussion. Right. So because you lose joint stability. So injured joints could be a long-term effect of a concussion. But I think here's the not so morbid side of things. There's a lot of research coming out on TES, which is traumatic encephalopathic syndrome, which is the living form of CTE that everybody knows about. So CTE, you don't want to get diagnosed with CTE because you got to be dead to get that. TES is the living version of it. Basically, you're going to have some emotional problems. You're going to have some memory issues, some behavioral problems, probably some neurological signs. And you had to have a substantial history of brain injury. But the new research is coming out is not even the quantity of head injuries that you have, it's the quality. So the worse, the more bad head injuries that you have, the more likely you're going to develop TES or CTE. But the threshold is something like 16 years of play in the NFL.
Okay.
Right. So the level's super high. And when I say in the NFL, Dr. Bob Cantu, he's up in Boston. He's done a lot of this research. And what he basically said is by the time you get to NFL, you've already played Pee Wee, high school, college, like maybe some sort of minor league where you got drafted before you got drafted to NFL. Then you played a series of time in the NFL. So all of that's into account. So the frequency of individuals getting TES or CTE is super low, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do something because that will reduce your quantity of life, but your quality is way more important than your quantity. So, getting treated by someone from a functional medicine standpoint, a chiropractic standpoint, physical therapy, functional neurology, whatever it is really important after you have a concussion or suspect you have one.
Right. So let's go back for a second because you've got boys. I have boys.
5 of them.
5 of them. I have 2, although my daughter sometimes can hold her own with the boys. So, different gender, but probably does some ridiculous things along with them. And let's see, my oldest son I caught one day jumping out of the second-story window doing backflips under the trampoline that he moved over near the side of the house.
Yeah, absolutely.
but maybe even more importantly, I intentionally signed him up for football when he was 5 years old. And we played flag, and then we moved to tackle, I think, by the time he was 8. And there's a lot of talk about how appropriate, and we're picking on football, right? There's lots of concussions in soccer and basketball and in all sports. But since football gets a lot of the press, there's a lot of talk about how inappropriate it might be to put these kids in these sports, right, at such a young age. From a functional neurology standpoint, brain, like, would you let your boys do those sports? What's the Is there a right age to start engaging, to your point of like, how many times can you have these concussions and how severe? And if we sign our kids up for this, are we putting them at an unnecessary risk?
Well, here it comes. I'm about to get judged. My
Okay.
5-year-olds do motocross. We were just out yesterday on the track, and right now, Ashton, he's just turning 6 in 14 days, 2 weeks. His record is 21 feet of air on his motorcycle. So he's got a little electric motorcycle. So here's the thing. It's about being responsible. So here's the problem with kids riding dirt bikes, playing football. Here's problem number one. Those helmets are heavy, right?
Mhm.
So there's a big device on their skinny, scrawny little neck, right? So that's a problem number one. And that's a problem also with women's soccer, because women don't genetically have the muscle mass that men do in their neck, and they're heading these balls or heading another head. That just increases the acceleration deceleration force, which causes more brain injury. So here was the deal that I made with my wife. I said, Ashton and Aiden see daddy riding his dirt bike. They want to ride a dirt bike as well too. So I said, what we're going to do is we're going to put them in gymnastics. Okay. So they did 2 years of gymnastics. They started gymnastics at 3. They got their dirt bikes at 5, because I wanted to make sure they were a cat, right? Whenever they fall, they land on their feet, and they needed to learn how to use their body. So that was so important to me. And I feel like that really does a lot to um, mitigate the risk. So with football, starting with flag football, where the focus is on being good at the sport, being good at the game, not just smashing heads and things like. Same thing with hockey. They played hockey. It's all about no pads or anything like that. Of course, they wore a helmet, but they needed to get hurt when they fall, so they don't fall anymore. So I think that part of it is what really we need to embrace, is that kids will be kids. Kids will do crazy things. I did them. You did them. Your kids do them. My kids do them. There's no stopping that. But if you can give them the tools to be safe and understand how important their brain is, like my kids, they will not even dream about getting on a bicycle or scooter without a helmet on, because they know how important their brain is. And at the same time, they also know that daddy can fix their brain, but that's not what's in the back of their head. I'm a bad person if you are on the no football, no motocross, no soccer. I don't play on that team. I play on the team of be super responsible and make sure you don't just throw your kids into a situation where they can or most likely will get injured. Give them the tools in order to be able to have fun.
Yeah, I love that. It's interesting. Both my boys also wrestle, and a little different than gymnastics, but they know how to get out of certain positions, right?
Yeah,
They know where they are in space at every moment in time from wrestling. And I think that made them much safer. And I actually started them wrestling at 4.5 before they even knew what flag football was all about. So, gymnastics great, wrestling great. I think the other thing that was really interesting is, and I'm going to give a little shout out to a friend of mine, Alan Phillipson, who developed something called the SurveyFit, which actually is an apparatus that we got a hold of, where you actually it's a unit that sits on the forehead, and you can change the amount of plates on it. And we actually had the boys do neck strengthening exercises, right?
yeah,
Because they go to the gym and they're taught to lift weights and do all of this other training, but really, who is strengthening their neck? And even as
exactly.
boys, and we know that the more strength they had there, the less, right, that concussive injury due to the force
Absolutely. Yeah,
certainly would
absolutely. And
not prevent,
you
but lessen, right?
Yeah, and
Lessen
you
the severity.
mentioned something about knowing where you are in space, which is really interesting, because that is the most fundamental neurological concept that everybody can embrace. Um, we have to know where we are in space. Whenever we start losing where we are in space, everything else goes downhill from there. So that was kind of what I believe as well too, as far as sports go. One of the things I often talk to my patients about is, like, when the brain is broken, we have to look at the instruction manual. How did God or whoever you believe create that brain? If we know the order in which the creator created the brain, then we can go all the way back to the beginning and figure out what's broken. And if we start studying the ontogeny, or the development of embryos, the very first thing that happens in the ontogeny of the nervous system is we have vestibular function, which is our inner ears telling us where we are in space. Everything is built on top of that. It's literally like the bottom layer of a pyramid, or the foundation of your house. So, I mean, that's probably the most important thing, not even for athletes, but any person. And you'll notice one of the first signs of somebody going downhill as they age is they lose their balance. They're falling more often. If people start falling, it's just a matter of time before they break a hip. And we all heard the story about the lady down the street that broke her hip and she never came home. So it's pretty important to know where you are in space.
So is it really just about the fall? Like the other day, I don't know what I was doing. I was standing somewhere and I like just sort of, took a step to the side, right? And I wasn't drinking
I was
now.
gonna say, how many margaritas?
No. I would own that if that's the reason, but I was not drinking. But I just sort of fell over a little bit. Like, now again, based on age, right? Is that something I should think, I should really pay attention, the fact that that started to happen? Or do I really wait until I'm literally falling before I think my brain is deteriorating?
It depends on you. I mean, I'm like one of those guys that flosses his teeth twice a day and brush my teeth twice or three times a day. I don't know. My cars are clean all the time. Like I go in the garage, my wife will be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, cleaning the car. I just like things to be in good shape. So for me, if I just toppled over, I'd be like, all right, schedule an appointment with Dr. Carrick or something like that. I would get checked out. But there's other people that, this is typically a guy thing, right? You can have a nail stuck in your head and be like, I'm fine. Wait, there's a nail stuck in your head. So is it rusting yet? It's like,
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm somewhere between, I toppled over once and it only happened once, and the nail in my head. I think there's a happy medium in there.
yeah, exactly. So, that's really your preference. It's like, like we talk about anti-aging. I think I think it's an oxymoron. I just don't think you can stop aging. But graceful aging is a great thing.
Right.
And doing things that's regenerative and restorative. I think there's a whole bunch of things that you can do. And, I don't know. I think people are very concerned with, wrinkles and Botox and fillers and all this kind of stuff. I mean, imagine if you spent that money on your brain. I think that's $1 better spent.
Yeah,
Personal
and
opinion.
I don't think we pay attention to our brain much,
We
right?
don't, because we don't see it.
Right. Yeah, until we lose it. And then somebody
Exactly.
tells us we've lost it and we don't even know we've lost it, right?
Exactly.
So I'd love to touch on two more just really quick things. And then I think we're going to have you back like 6 or 7 times because there's so many cool topics that I want to dive into. But you briefly mentioned, ADD at the very beginning of this. And I'd love to just spend 30, 40, 60 seconds on brain health and that, because I can't stand how over medicated a lot of this world is, as their answer for that diagnosis of ADD. From a chiropractic neurologist, functional neurology standpoint, can you give me the high level? What can we do for some of these people that either don't want to be medicated or really shouldn't?
The best thing that anybody who has ADD or ADHD, because then they're different conditions, one's a deficit, one's a hyperactivity disorder. Movement is the best thing you can do. Get up and move. And that's not just like a cop out answer. You can literally see, if you graphed activity versus ADHD prevalence, you'll see them go in opposite directions. If you did a population, you'll see activity going this way, ADD, ADHD going that way. We're taking kids and shortening their recesses, and instead of giving them recess because they were bad, they didn't do well on a test, we're putting math tutoring instead of recess. It's the opposite of what you want to do. Instead of letting your kids go out and run around and ride their bikes, they're sitting in front of televisions. And that's another thing. Screen time is just tragic for kids. Think about how amazing the world is on TV. What do people look like? How do they dress? What kind of cars do they drive? The explosions, the gunshots. I mean, it's all dopamine crack. You live in front of that TV for so long, the world stinks. You just don't want to, you don't want to engage in this world. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm sitting there daydreaming about, Die Hard with Bruce Willis or something. It's just, it's just, that's another big problem is this. And then social media, throw that on top of it, all the dopamine hits that people are getting from social media.
Mm-hmm.
So when you when you have something that's driving that dopamine all the time, giving you that motivation and that reward, all the time, and then you have to focus in school where the reward and the motivation is 12 years later, that's a hard one. So one of the best things that we can all practice is dopamine detoxes. Right now, my kids, they were okay to watch TV because they were watching YouTube videos on either dirt biking, math, alphabet, or Spanish. I was cool with it. But then it's like they started becoming so TV, YouTube driven. I said, that's it. No TV Monday through Friday. You can watch it on the weekends in between riding your dirt bikes or exercising outside. So they get about probably an hour and a half of screen time a week.
I love it.
And even the older ones, they don't. My 18-year-old just went off to college. He's had a cell phone for 2 years. My 16-year-olds, they don't even have cell phones. They have Apple Watches so we can get a hold of them, but they don't have cell phones. They don't have a social media account, just because I know how important that is. It's going to be better for them later.
Yeah, it's so cool. It makes me think of a story when Jackson, my youngest, was in kindergarten. The teacher would call me and go, he's always bouncing up and down in his chair and he can't sit still and he can't focus. And you've got to talk to him. And I said, I'm not talking to him. I said, when he gets like that, send him to the gym, tell him to run 2 laps, have him come back. And if he's still not focusing, then you can call me. The phone call stopped.
Exactly.
Right? But it's just it. One of our favorite teachers actually had a basketball hoop in the classroom. So I joke that if I was in charge of the world, Matt, which I have all these plans because I've been working on this for a very long time and I only need 4 hours to do it. But if I was in charge of the world, all classrooms would have a trampoline in the middle of the classroom. And as soon as you're done doing your worksheet, which I'm not a fan of anyway, I'd probably get rid of worksheets too, you'd go jump on the trampoline so that you get that sensory input, right? And then you can go back and you can listen to the teacher for 82 more seconds and actually focus. And then when you're done, you can go shoot baskets. And I would have every classroom have some sort of mandatory physical activity, right? To keep them focused.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was working on one of the younger twins, the 5-year-olds, because I've got 2 sets of twins. One of the younger sets of twins, he had a really hard time with his P, B's, D's, and Q's. So they start saying, he might be dyslexic. I'm like, all right, I'm going to nip this in the butt real quick. So I basically said, all right, Aiden, here we go. We're going to do this. Every time you get 1 row of P, B, D's, and Q's right, you get a quarter. Right? Every time you get it wrong, you give me a quarter back. Right? And that's kind of what we did for a little while. And he started getting a lot of them wrong. He had 4 quarters. He lost 3 of them. I said, all right, get up and shake out your bones. So he just starts shaking his bones and he'll come down and he'll nail a line. He'll nail another line. He'll nail another line. So it just shows you that was my own little mini experiment with my kid, shaking your bones, just like you're saying, getting out sensory input and it helps you think. If you look at how our brains are wired, we are wired to move first and think second. If you try to break that order, just like I said, the blueprint, if you try to mess with the blueprint, the end result is not the same. We have to have movement.
I love it. We have to have movement. You know what? Again, Matt, I could talk to you for hours on this, but we're going to thank our sponsors who are super important to me. So please don't go anywhere. Take a listen. I would say let your brain relax, but it's still got to listen to the sponsors. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop, hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. Welcome back, and I'm glad you hung out because this is one of my favorite parts of the show. This is the rapid fire questions. Dr. Matt Antonucci, are you ready? These are questions you have not been prepped. We did not send them to you ahead of time. They're so easy. Are you ready?
Nervous. Honestly, I'm nervous. So yeah, I'm ready, but as ready as I'm going to be.
Don't be nervous because then the cortisol goes up and then there's a whole neurological response.
Oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, I need to save all my neurons possible. I don't need any neurotoxicity from my cortisol. So let's do it.
Right. Okay. You're going to need 3 extra neurons to get through this. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go. If you could change the color of snow to any color except white, what color would you make it?
Oh my goodness. Blue.
Blue. Why blue? The ocean's blue. You want it all to blend in? Like,
Oh, it's my favorite color, and that's why. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm
okay,
kind
I'm
of
just
thinking
gonna.
like, well, that'd be interesting if the snow was blue, the sky was blue. It'd just be a blue world, and I love blue.
You wouldn't know where you're going though, because everything would be blue. You wouldn't know north from like south. I don't think. Would you?
I guess that's true too. But I live in Florida, so I don't never see snow anyways. So
All right. Well, just so you know, blue is the most popular answer. So you've become like the average. Okay, I shouldn't say that. You're anything but average.
I was
That's
gonna say
just
there's one thing that I fit in average, and it's the first time somebody ever told me you're like the norm.
well, you are for what color you want to know. Okay, see, here's the funny thing. I keep telling the audience that this is rapid fire questions. There's like absolutely nothing rapid fire about what I do here, like ever.
But wait a
'Cause
second,
I
hold
always
on.
want-
Don't you? If I remember right, I remember we were speaking at a conference somewhere, and you said you hate the color blue.
I do. It's my
How could
least
you
favorite
hate the
color.
color blue?
I don't know. I must have had like this traumatic experience in a past life with a different moon, and I don't know. But like I came out just not liking blue. Like truly, you won't see me wearing blue except blue jeans because they only usually come in blue, right? Like there aren't green jeans or yellow jeans. Well, kind of, I guess, but you know what I mean. And no, like I just
Do you have any
I
blue
don't.
boots?
I don't. I don't own blue boots.
You have every color under the sun except for blue.
That is a true
You
story.
hate it that much?
I do. I do not own blue boots. And probably never will. Okay, let's go because I have a feeling we could discuss this color blue for 3.5 hours. And at that point, I think we will lose the audience. So, all right, next question. You're going to have dinner with somebody famous, dead or alive. Doesn't matter who it is. What are you eating?
Ooh, man. Pizza. New Haven pizza, though. New Haven pizza. It's my favorite pizza in the world.
Oh, New Haven pizza.
Yep. It's
Like
it's
over
special.
Chicago
I
pizza?
know you're Chicago. You got your deep dish pizza. It's too much dough. I like
Yeah,
the
it's-
really, really thin crust. I like wood
Okay.
fired, cooked at like 900 degrees for like 90 seconds.
Are you a cheese guy or do you have like 100 toppings?
Well, it depends if I want to be traditional or not. Like if I'm going to have dinner with somebody really special, I think I'm going to want more than just cheese. So probably for me, it's going to be pepperoni. My kids like this barbecue chicken pizza. It's not real pizza. I mean, it's just like blasphemous. It's like barbecues with barbecue sauce and cheddar cheese on pizza just doesn't work for me.
Okay, so you would actually hate going for pizza with me because I'm gluten and dairy free. So I have to have a gluten-free crust. So it's usually like a cauliflower crust, which could be disguised. Nobody has to know. But then I do like a salad on my pizza with no cheese because I can't do dairy. So it's kind of like a salad bread, like a salad sandwich pizza, which I call pizza, but you would tell me it's not pizza.
Yeah, that's not pizza.
It's
No.
pizza.
What we need to do is, I think what we need to do is we need to get a speaking engagement in New Haven, maybe at Yale University or something like that. Okay. And we're going to go to Sally's Pizza, which is on Worcester Street in New Haven, Connecticut. And it'll literally change your life. You won't be gluten or dairy free anymore.
No, I'll be in the bathroom. I'm going to be in the bathroom for like 4 hours.
It'll cure you. It's going to cure your soul and it's going to cure your digestive tract. It's that good.
Matt, it's going to clean out my colon. It will change me and not in a good way. And it'll be the last speaking gig we ever do together because I'll be like missing. It'll be like, where's Dr. City? Oh, she's still in the bathroom because she had pizza. So I'll tell you what, I will do the speaking gig with you. You nail that down at Yale. I will show up. I'm going to watch you eat pizza and then I'm going to go out for salad afterward. How's that?
Hey, you know what? There's a really good salad place right next door too. It's an Italian restaurant, really good salad with Italian dressing, gluten-free. You're good.
Okay, perfect. We're going to make this work. All right. Next question. Okay. If you could be a professional singer, dancer, or musician, what would you be?
Out of the three, dancer.
And what kind of dance?
Oh, man. Breakdancing.
Did you watch the Olympics recently? Did you see the breakdancing competition in the Olympics? What'd you think? Could you like compete? Would you hate?
I can't right now, but if I could, I would. I just think it's so cool. I love when they spin on their head. I've got a crazy story, and hopefully he watches this. My clinic advisor when I was in chiropractic school, I became really great friends with him, and we ended up starting to hang out on the weekends. And we're at this place called MJQ in Atlanta. It's like an underground bar, underground nightclub in Atlanta. And all of a sudden, I don't know where he puts his hands out, and he starts breakdancing, like spinning on his head, spinning on his back, straight up helicopter kicks. I'm like, you're my clinic advisor. Where did this come from? It was the most amazing moment of my life. Adam Talone, he practices in the Netherlands now, but that was like one of the moments of my life. I was like, you are the man.
See, I'm still wondering how, as a neurologist, spinning on your head would be a good choice.
As long as you're not hitting your head, there's nothing wrong with spinning on your head.
But if you're
it could be
spinning
therapeutic
fast enough, the brain could actually still shift within the skull, don't you think? If the force is great enough, no?
Yeah, that's some serious spinning right there. But
well, I mean, if you're gonna,
it could be therapeutic. It could be therapeutic.
It could be. It could be. I don't think it is.
Some vestibular rehab, spinning you on your head.
Right. Well, I mean, if nothing else, it builds your practice. So maybe that's a good thing. Breakdown saying it's a good advertisement for the business. All right, you've got to pick a drink for the rest of your life: sweet, sour, or strong.
Ooh, sweet, sour. I'm not a sweet person.
I've heard that about you.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. I'm also not a sour person.
I've heard that about you as well.
So I guess probably strong.
Margaritas. Perfect. Margaritas. So frozen, shaken?
Shaken. No, frozen margaritas. That's not a real margarita.
It's not a drink. Salt on the rim?
Of course. Sometimes a little tahini too. Oh, that's fantastic.
Ooh, okay. All right. Little health benefit. I love it. All right. And lastly, my favorite question out of all of them. What was your favorite thing about doing today's podcast?
It's just the interaction. I love talking to you. Like, honestly, you're a great host. You make me say things that I would never think that I would say. And it just has a lot of fun. And yeah, I think that it's an opportunity to really kind of dig deep inside of there and get some information out that I normally wouldn't talk about, but also kind of to be able to share and hopefully give people a taste of what it's like to be in the world of somebody who's dealing with brain injuries and lives inside people's heads. I don't know. It's just all of the conversation. I just had so much fun.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Matt. How do we get a hold of you? How can people find you, follow you, learn what's going on in your world? Share with us how we do that.
I'm on all the social media outlets, all the things the kids are on these days, TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Carrick Institute is the one and only organization that I speak for. So you can find me at carrickinstitute.com. I also have my own website, drantonucci.com, just my name spelled out, Dr. Antonucci spelled out my last name. Lots of stuff on there. Everything from like my speaking events are on there, testimonials from patients, cool stories, blog posts, a lot of informative information. And those are really the two ways to get a hold of me. And of course, they're on my website. You can also contact me by email. There's a little form you fill out and says send Dr. A message. So happy to answer those with any questions. And whatever I could do to be of assistance.
Oh my God, so great. And once in a while, you might actually see us together on stage because we do love to do that. So Dr. Antonucci, as always, it is a pleasure. If you want more information about what's going on in my world, please check me out at drsindyspeaks.com. You can also sign up for my Not So Daily newsletter. And please check out my book, Positively Altered, Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag. Amazon. It's great. And if you don't want to read, you can actually listen to it. I will tell you that my favorite thing about this podcast is just the back and forth with you. I love, no pun intended, picking your brain. It's super fun because the neurology just excites me. And I still, as much as I've been practicing the way I practice, don't know enough about it. And I learn from you all the time whenever we talk. Oh. The good news is because I get you to say things you don't normally say, I'm going to have you back. So if you enjoyed the show, make sure you look for us because Dr. Matt Antonucci is already on the schedule for part 2. We're going to have him back and a little more fun and maybe a little more non-filter. We shall see. I hope all of you today were left positively altered.